Welcome to CPXL. This podcast of CrossPoint Church is designed to encourage you to go further and grow deeper. CrossPoint is a rural multi-site church committed to taking the gospel to every place and everyone. You can access all CrossPoint resources at crosspointchurch.com. But now, let's join this episode of CPXL with your host, Pastor Andy Addis.
And the wonderful Mrs. Addis. How are you doing today, dear?
I'm good.
Good. We are continuing our roll through the book of Proverbs. And if you were with us, you know you've read Proverbs chapter 9 for this week. And we're going to cover just a few verses from 7 through 12.
10.
What's that?
10.
10?
Chapter 10.
No, we're in chapter 9. You stick with me.
Oh, my goodness. I was just reading chapter 10.
Yes, you're good. You're good. Are y'all caught up now?
I'm good, yeah.
So you thought you were prepared.
Oh, my.
I wish we'd all been ready. What's funny is we just talked about this.
We
just
literally
we did.
seconds ago talked about this.
Right.
Yeah, I'm right on top of things.
You are. You're with it. I'm very impressed. Anyway, Proverbs chapter 9. Don't tell Kathy. It's chapter 9. Verses 7 through 12. And it is. And since you haven't had a chance to preview it, why don't you read these verses for us?
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Read verses 7 through 12, and then we'll start. And I just want you to know, I've labeled, this is not, I had no idea this was going to be the intro here. I'm calling it Back to School because we all need an education. So you'll see why in just a minute.
Oh, my goodness.
Read Proverbs chapter 9, verses 7 through 12.
Okay. Anyone who rebukes a mocker will get an insult in return. Anyone who corrects the wicked will get hurt. Don't bother correcting mockers. They will only hate you. But correct the wise and they will love you. Sorry. Page turn. Verse 9. Instruct the wise and they will be even wiser. Teach the righteous and they will learn even more. Fear of the Lord is the foundation of wisdom. Knowledge of the Holy One results in good judgment. Wisdom will multiply your days and add years to your life. If you become wise, you will be the one to benefit. If you scorn wisdom, you will be the one to suffer. Mercy.
And that's why I say going back to school. There's a lot to learn here, right?
A lot, yeah.
So I've divided this into 3 separate lines. Signs you are unteachable, signs you are teachable, and deciding to be teachable. So going back to school. Since it's August and we're thinking these way, maybe you got one last trip in you. That'll be great. The parents are the only ones who love back to school, right? Okay.
Oh, well, I think kids usually do too, like the first couple days.
Couple hours.
Maybe. Once they see all their friends and see all the new clothes and they're like, oh, okay, I'm
And then there's that moment. Do you remember that moment, the first week of school, where you're like, I have to do this for months.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's just the first day.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah,
that's
I do remember that. Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. Let's start with signs that you are unteachable. From the first couple verses, it says, whoever corrects a scoffer, you said mocker. Right? Mm-hmm. Scoffer gets himself abuse, and he who reproves a wicked man incurs injury. Do not reprove a scoffer, or he will hate you. And then it goes on to talk about a wise man. So we got 3 stanzas here that are all talking about the person with some counsel and how they handle mockers. Now, a mocker is unteachable. That's the person that we're looking at here. When we say mocker, the word for mocker is this word which means someone who is defective, honestly. A mocker is hardened in his ways. There's a lot that, we think a mocker is not smart. Mocker's not smart, right? Because that's what they do. But the reality of their condition is that they are hardened. And the reason they mock is because they don't really have an answer. They don't really have a response. They are just stuck right there. They are the stiff-necked and the stubborn. So whoever corrects a scoffer is going to get abused. That's what it says. Because their only response is to push back. And let me just tell you, watch cable news for about 15 minutes. Pick it. Pick your party. Pick your channel. Does not matter. What you're going to see is a bunch of scoffers and mockers who don't really have answers. They have talking points and abuse that goes back out. If you want a lesson on being unteachable, flip between CNN and Fox News. Just go back and forth. And you see both sides of the aisle are just, okay, they're both there. That's good. So just make sure you heard. If you were offended because I mentioned one of those, I mentioned the other one too. Don't be a mocker. Don't get offended. Don't be so stiff-necked that... Anyway, what happens to that person? We could go through... It's talking about scoffers and wicked men and then scoffers again. But what happens to the one who's trying to do that? It says you are abused, you are injured, and you are hated.
Mine says, my little note that I wrote says that they will judge you.
Yeah. Yeah. They'll put you in a category. They'll put you in a little compartmentalized container, burpee closed, put a label on you.
Yeah.
But the key is to understand, if you're going to have wisdom, if you're going to promote wisdom, then understand when you run into these difficult people, the response is going to be this: abuse, injury, and hatred. That's it. So, I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
No, So do we do it or do we not do it?
Oh, you got to do it. I'm just telling you what to expect. Listen, you're talking to a preacher, though. I talk to a wide variety of people on a regular basis.
True.
The majority of people that you talk to in church are generally loving and pleasing and appreciative. And it's a very small minority that aren't, which tells us that the church isn't as effective as it should be. Because we should have a lot more people. George Whitefield, one of the early revivalists in America, this is one of my favorites. If you don't believe me on this, you got to look this up. He and Finney and Edwards and everybody, they were all preaching at the same time. But Jonathan or George Whitefield has stories about the fact that he used to get done speaking early because people would guess what they threw at him?
Like tomatoes?
Like rotten tomatoes, things like that. That's what you think? They threw dead cats at him.
Oh, my goodness. What?
I'm not kidding you.
My.
They literally would throw dead cats at him because they were mockers. They were just throwing death at him while he's preaching.
Wow, that is serious.
Every time I think, but I didn't get treated very well in that online discussion. I
didn't get enough likes.
I didn't. Nobody told me it was a good message. Nobody threw a dead cat at me today.
Somebody throws a dead cat at you, I'm not standing next to you after church.
So
wow.
Yeah, we should be willing to undergo that.
Yeah.
But I think God, we don't have to. But maybe if God calls us to do that, and we have to stand up in the marketplace of ideas, then just get ready to take your shots, because there's some people that are unteachable, and those are the signs of the unteachable. Now they can be taught if God wants to teach them and do that. So
we were all there once.
It's true. It's true. I know some people say, I don't listen to stupid people, which is something stupid people say. I want to make sure you hear that, because the mocker would look at you and go, I don't listen to stupid people.
Ah,
right?
Sure.
So just make sure we understand, Christians don't need to be open-minded, but we just need to be willing to be heard and rejected.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Heard and rejected. A great example of this is in Matthew chapter 19. If you remember the story of the rich young ruler, and it wasn't a dead cat scenario at all, but Jesus told him, you're doing well. You're doing all this stuff really well. Here's what you have to do. Sell all your stuff. And it says that he went away sad.
Yeah.
Because all these other things that he had, the respect in the community, his possessions, his position, all that kind of stuff, to him it outweighed what Jesus was offering him. And so even though he was gentle and everybody liked him, he was still a mocker because he was unteachable. Make sense?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, let's flip the script. What are some signs that you are teachable? Let's move on just a little bit more. The second half of verse 8 and following. Reprove a wise man, and he will love you. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be still wiser. Teach a righteous man, and he will increase in learning. Now, we approach the first one with, we're trying to teach a mocker. So let's flip the script now. Are we that person that can receive the instruction? Because remember we said, what is it to be unteachable? What does it mean to be teachable? It means that when someone is reproved, they will love the reprover. Reproof means, to rebuke, reprove. What's your best definition of that?
Hold you accountable is what I mean.
Call you out.
Yeah. Yeah.
They call you out, right? And what does this say? When you reprove a wise person, somebody who's teachable, they will love you for it. How we doing, folks? Everybody feeling pretty wise?
I think it very. I think it depends on how I am rebuked or reproved, or sometimes it's the who, but more than that, I think it's the how.
It's true. We accept it better from somebody that we love, and we accept it better from somebody that says it well.
Yeah.
That's not what this says. I mean, what you're saying is a true statement, but it says the righteous man, or the wise man, the wise man. If you reprove a wise man, reprove is not a fun word. That is,
no.
They get on you, they call you out. You reprove a wise man, and he goes, "Oh, I love you." That's that moment when the cop pulls you over, and you're like, "I was disobedient. Thank you. You are a servant of the community." And you're not trying to get out of the ticket. You're like literally going, "I was lost in my sins."
And he's looking at you like you have two heads.
So this is hard, because if you say, "Well, I'm teachable," when you are reproved, not necessarily by someone you love or in a good way, do you love the fact that, oh, truth was just spoken to me? Truth was just spoken to me. I've had some times before where somebody has reproved me, and your initial thought is always, "Well, who are you?" Or blah, blah, blah. But sometimes it's so important. It's almost never a spiritual thing, but like I remember driving down the highway on vacation years ago, and this truck full of hillbillies pulled up next to us.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And I thought they were getting ready to start some trouble. But what he told, roll your window down. Our pigtail had come loose on a trailer and was dragging on the ground. He was trying to keep us from an accident, save us some money. And he reproved me. I'm like, "Thank you. Those are the best guys we met today." And so reprove a wise man, and he'll love you. Second, give instruction to a wise man, and he'll be wiser. When somebody instructs you, does it add to your wisdom? Or do you reject it? You're like, "Well, that's for somebody else." Or maybe that's good for them.
I think this was harder for me when I was younger. I think I didn't take instruction very well. I certainly didn't take reproof very well. But, I mean, instruction was because, I know everything.
So you think you've gotten better is what you're saying?
Yeah, I think it was just hard for me to, earlier, younger, not necessarily with, like biblical teachings and stuff like that, because I knew I didn't know hardly anything about that, but just life stuff.
Yeah, I don't know that I've gotten any better. I recognize that issue, but I take it well. I think I take reproof and instruction well from people that I respect and put in those positions above me, where I go, they are smarter, they've been down the road, they've earned their stripes. Don't always give that same benefit to others, but I need to understand that our standards for who's worthy are not God's standards for who's worthy to give instruction. There are people who've never had an education except the one God gave them that have a lot of wisdom to give.
Yep,
and we just have to be willing to listen. And finally, teach a righteous man, he'll increase in knowledge. So we have this teachable scenario where if instruction is actually what's really interesting is in the verse 9, give instruction to a wise man and he'll be still wiser. The word instruction's not even in the text. They take it as a way to make the sentence make sense. Here's what it actually says. Give to a wise man and he'll still be wiser. Which means you give him anything. You give a wise guy something, you give him nonsense. You go, "Well, that was nonsense. That'll make me wiser." Right?
And now I know.
And so if you're teachable, the key value here is it makes you receptive. That's what it does. It just turns you into something that says, whether it's good or bad, whether it's intended for my harm or my benefit, I'm going to look for I teach our location pastors this all the time. You're going to get criticized. You're going to have people who get irate over X, Y, and Z. Look for the kernel of truth. It may be a whole cob of lies, but there is one kernel on that cob that is worth listening to. You get that, and it's worth enduring the whole thing. Yeah. Right? Yeah, that's really good. Well, I hope so. Yeah, it's not fun in any way, shape, or form, for sure. What's funny is I have in my notes here exactly what you said. Take it from people who are close to you. That's why you have to be close to the Lord, is what I said. Because you draw close to the Lord when He gives you those things, then yes, you'll grow. Finally, the last thing, how do you decide to be teachable? Let's finish up this passage. The fear of the Lord, there it is again. It is the theme of the book of Proverbs. What is the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Here it is. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. For by me your days will be multiplied, and your years will be added to your life. If you are wise for yourself. We're going to cover that years added next week. So there's a lot of that we're going to talk about next week. So verse 12, if you are wise for yourself. If you scoff, you will bear it alone. Wisdom is self-beneficial. The fact that we resist it and are arrogant about it is crazy, because when it says you alone will bear it, the word is nasa, which is spelled in like a transliteration, NASA, like NASA, which is crazy because it means literally to lift, to rise, or to bear, like a rocket ship. But what it says is if you scoff, you're carrying that by yourself. If you listen to the Lord and you listen to wisdom, that is a blessing to yourself. It's spreading the weight out. It is increasing and all those things. But if you scoff, you will bear that alone. Here's the issue. True knowledge begins with the heart and not the head. It's not about how smart you are. It's about how submissive you are to God and to wisdom.
Yeah.
Right? And if we'll bend the knee to him and we'll bend the knee to what he's doing, then wisdom can come our way. But wisdom washes over dumb people all the time.
Sure.
Over fools. And it's just rejected, right?
Yeah.
So we have to decide what we want. We have to decide whether we're willing to take correction and make us wise, which is wisdom in itself, or if we want to bear that on our own. Here's a word. You know I love words. The word priority came into the English language in the 1400s. They can trace it back. We know we got the word priority, and it means what it means. It was the priority. But we don't use the word priority anymore. We use it as a plural. It's priorities. And did you know that for the first 500 years, there was no plural priority? It was just priority. Only in the last 100 years or so have we made it priorities. And why is that? Because we want so many options, and we don't want a priority. We don't want the Lord and the wisdom of the Lord. We want a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And when we do that, we end up becoming wisdom ourselves, we think, because we choose what's right or wrong. And so this word priorities is actually about a priority. And if the priority is the Lord, then you can have wisdom. So just a little wordplay for you. I thought that was fun.
It's interesting.
I think it is.
Oh, it really is. It
Well,
really
good.
is.
Good. So let's continue on, and let's ask ourselves what we need to do for a CPXL challenge. Here's what I believe. I believe that sometime in this next week, you are going to be challenged. You're going to have wisdom come your way. My prayer and the challenge is this: you receive it. Whether it comes from somebody you love or don't love, whether you like it or you don't like it, that you go, and you receive that wisdom. That's the challenge. You up for it?
I'm in.
Let's do it.
I'm in.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll hope to see you again real soon on another edition of CPXL.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of CPXL. We hope that you have been challenged to go further and grow deeper. If this podcast has been a help to you, we ask that you would like, comment, and share on whatever platform you use. And if you would like to access additional resources, go to CrossPointChurch.com. We will see you again soon on another edition of CPXL.